The rain had turned the city streets into black mirrors by the time I pushed through the heavy oak doors of Celestia, my shoulders aching from a double shift that had stretched into 14 hours. My feet screamed inside the worn flats I'd glued back together last week, and the familiar weight of exhaustion pressed against my chest like a physical thing. I could smell myself, sweat masked poorly by cheap body spray, mixed with the kitchen grease that clung to my server's uniform no matter how many times I washed it. "Good work tonight, sweetheart," Marcus called from behind the bar, already counting the register. I managed a weak smile, collected my meager tips from the jar, and slipped back into the rain without another word. The bus stop was 2 blocks away, 2 blocks that felt like 2 miles. I pulled my threadbare cardigan tighter, ignoring how the fabric hung loose where a button had fallen off months ago. The city looked different at this hour, cleaner somehow, washed by rain, emptied of the usual chaos. Street lamps cast orange halos through the mist, and somewhere distant, a siren wailed its lonely song. That's when I noticed the car. It sat at the corner like a predator. Sleek, black, expensive in a way that didn't belong in this neighborhood. Even through the rain-streaked windows, I could see the chrome detailing that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. The engine purred, a low rumble that vibrated through the wet pavement beneath my feet. I should have kept walking, should have minded my own business. Instead, I slowed, curiosity pulling at me despite my exhaustion. Through the tinted back window, I could just make out movement, shadows shifting, the brief flare of what might have been a phone screen. Then the front door opened. A man stepped out, tall, built like he spent serious time in a gym, wearing a suit that fit too perfectly to be off the rack. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. Rain dotted his shoulders, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His eyes found mine across the distance, dark and assessing in a way that made my stomach clench. "Miss," he said, his voice carrying easily through the downpour. "You need to move along." It wasn't a suggestion. I should have listened, should have ducked my head and hurried past. But I was tired. So bone-deep tired that my usual filter had worn away to nothing. "It's a public sidewalk," I heard myself say, the words coming out sharper than intended. "Last I checked, that car doesn't own the street." His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Tension, maybe, or warning. The back door opened before he could respond. I caught my breath. The man who emerged moved like water, fluid, unhurried, completely in control. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead, despite obvious expensive styling. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a black shirt underneath that made his olive skin seem to glow even in the dim streetlight. No tie. The top 2 buttons undone in a way that should have looked casual, but somehow didn't. He was beautiful. Devastatingly, dangerously beautiful. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold, dark, almost black, sharp with an intelligence that felt like being X-rayed. They swept over me once, taking in everything. My wet hair plastered to my cheeks, my stained uniform, my broken shoes, the tips clutched in my trembling hand. I watched him register it all in less than 3 seconds. "Problem, Marcus?" His voice was low, textured like smoke and expensive whiskey. It sent an involuntary shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. "No, sir." The suited man, Marcus apparently, replied immediately. "Just a pedestrian." Those dark eyes hadn't left mine. I felt pinned, examined, like a specimen under glass. Rain ran down my face, but I couldn't look away. Didn't dare look away. "She looks cold," he said finally, and I hated how my heart jumped at the observation. And tired. "I'm fine," I managed, finding my voice even though it came out smaller than I wanted. "Just heading home." One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. Dangerous close. "At this hour? In this weather?" He tilted his head slightly, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Where's home?" "None of your business," I said, but the words lacked conviction. Something about him made lying feel impossible. like he'd see through it before the sentence finished. He took a step closer, and I noticed Marcus tense beside the car. Rain fell between us, creating a curtain of silver drops in the streetlight. He smelled like cedar and something darker. Leather, maybe, or smoke. Clean and masculine, and far too expensive for this part of town. "You work at Celestia," he said. Not a question. A statement. "I've seen you there." My stomach dropped. Celestia catered to a specific clientele, the kind with money, power, and secrets they paid handsomely to keep. We had a private dining room on the second floor that required a separate entrance and 3 security checks. I'd served up there exactly once, 3 months ago, when they were desperate for staff during a weekend rush. I'd tried not to look at the men in expensive suits conducting business over plates that cost more than my weekly rent. Tried not to hear the conversations that fell silent when I approached with wine bottles that probably cost more than my car insurance. Had he been there? Had I served him? "I don't remember you," I said, which was a lie. Because now that he was standing here, close enough that I could see the slight scar above his left eyebrow, the perfect architecture of his face, I did remember. A flash of memory. Dark eyes watching me over a crystal glass. The weight of his attention like a physical touch even across a crowded room. That almost smile deepened. Liar. The word was soft, almost affectionate, but it carried weight. The rain fell harder, soaking through my cardigan, plastering my uniform to my skin. I was shivering now. Though whether from cold or something else, I couldn't tell. "I need to go," I said, taking a step back. "My bus is 3 blocks away at the depot for the night," he interrupted smoothly. "Last one left 20 minutes ago." Horror bloomed in my chest. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. The screen cracked, battery at 8%, and confirmed what he already knew. The last bus had indeed departed. The next one wouldn't come until 5:30 in the morning. 6 hours from now. Shit, I whispered, the word escaping before I could stop it. My apartment was 45 minutes away on foot, through neighborhoods that weren't safe even in daylight. I had $12 in tips. Not enough for a cab, even if I could find one willing to come to this area. "Get in the car." My head snapped up. He'd moved closer while I was distracted. Close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp jawline, full lips, a small mole just below his right eye that somehow made him more real, more dangerous. "What?" "Get in the car," he repeated, slower this time, like I was simple. "I'll take you home." "I don't even know you." "No," he agreed, and something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement? Frustration? "But I know you. I know you work doubles 4 times a week at Celestia. I know you take the bus because you can't afford to fix your car. I know you live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment near Fletcher Street. And I know—" He paused, his gaze dropping briefly to my trembling hands. "That you're about 30 seconds from collapsing in the middle of a rainstorm." Each word landed like a stone in my stomach. He knew too much. Way too much. "How?" "Get in the car, Piccola." The endearment rolled off his tongue like honey laced with arsenic. "We can discuss your concerns about stranger danger once you're warm and dry." Behind him, Marcus had opened the back door, waiting. The interior glowed with soft amber light, and I could see leather seats, probably heated. Dry. Warm. Every instinct screamed at me to run. This man was dangerous. Everything about him radiated controlled violence barely leashed beneath expensive clothes and cultured speech. The way Marcus deferred to him, the way he spoke with absolute certainty that his commands would be obeyed. The casual knowledge of my life that he shouldn't have had. But I was so tired, so cold, and 6 hours was a long time to wait in the rain. "Just a ride home," I heard myself say. "That's all." His smile was genuine this time, and somehow that was worse. "Of course," he said, gesturing toward the open door, "just a ride home." I moved forward on numb feet, ducking into the car before I could change my mind. The interior was exactly as luxurious as I'd imagined. Soft leather, gleaming wood paneling, and blessed heat that immediately began seeping into my frozen bones. It smelled like him, that cedar and smoke scent, wrapped around me like a possession. He slid in beside me, and Marcus closed the door with a soft click that sounded far too much like a cage locking. The driver, another large man in a suit, pulled smoothly into traffic without being told. I realized with a start that he must have known where we were going before I'd even given my address. "You're shivering." His voice came from too close, and I turned to find him watching me with that same intense focus. Without warning, he shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric was still warm from his body, impossibly soft, and smelled so strongly of him that I felt lightheaded. I should have refused, should have handed it back. Instead, I pulled it tighter around myself, hating how good it felt. "Thank you," I whispered. "You're welcome, Piccola." He settled back against the seat, but I could feel his attention never leaving me. "Now, before we reach your apartment, you're going to tell me your name." "Why?" "Because I asked." The simple arrogance of it should have angered me. Instead, I found myself answering, my voice barely audible over the rain drumming on the roof. "Elena. My name is Elena." "Elena," he repeated, and the way he said it, rolling the syllables, tasting them, made it sound like something precious, something owned. "Beautiful? Italian?" "My grandmother," I said, then immediately wondered why I was offering personal information to a man whose name I didn't even know. As if reading my thoughts, he extended a hand. Long fingers, I noticed, a heavy silver ring on his right middle finger engraved with something I couldn't quite make out in the dim light. "Dante," he said, "Dante Vittorio." I stared at his hand like it might bite me. Because I knew that name. Everyone in this city knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Vittorio. The family that owned half the restaurants, the construction companies, the unions. The family that appeared in newspaper headlines with lawyers but never in handcuffs. The family you didn't cross if you wanted to keep breathing. I started. But he pressed one finger to my lips, silencing me. "Careful, Piccola," he murmured, his touch burning against my mouth. "Some things are safer left unsaid in cars, even mine." He withdrew his hand slowly, deliberately, and I found myself missing the contact immediately. What was wrong with me? The car glided through rain-slicked streets, and I watched the city pass by through tinted windows that made everything look slightly unreal. My neighborhood approached too quickly. Familiar buildings, the corner store with its flickering sign, the playground with broken swings. When we pulled up outside my apartment building, a sagging structure with peeling paint and cracked steps, I felt suddenly, acutely aware of the contrast. His world and mine. They didn't belong together. "Thank you for the ride," I said, reaching for the door handle. His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not hard, not painful, but absolutely immovable. "Elena." My name was a command in his mouth. "Come to Celestia tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Ask for me." "Why would I?" "Because I'm asking you to." His thumb brushed over my pulse point, and I knew he could feel how my heart raced. "And because you're curious. I can see it in your eyes." "I work tomorrow night," I protested weakly. "Not anymore." He released my wrist, but the ghost of his touch remained. "I'll arrange it. 9 o'clock, Elena. Don't make me come looking for you." It should have sounded like a threat. Maybe it was. I scrambled out of the car, his jacket still draped around my shoulders, and didn't look back until I reached my building's entrance. When I turned, the car was still there, engine purring, watching, making sure I got inside safely. Or making sure I went exactly where he expected me to go. I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment on shaking legs, fumbled with my keys, and locked the door behind me with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Only then did I notice the blood. It had soaked through my uniform sleeve, sticky and dark, spreading from a gash on my forearm that I didn't remember getting. Must have happened during the dinner rush. I'd grabbed a broken plate bare-handed when a busboy dropped a tray. I'd been too busy, too tired to notice. Now it throbbed, angry red around the edges. I peeled off his jacket carefully, planning to wash it, return it somehow. That's when I found the card tucked into the inner pocket. Heavy cardstock, Elegant script, Dante Vittorio, and below it, a phone number. I should have thrown it away, should have forgotten this entire night. Called in sick tomorrow. Stayed as far away from Celestia and Dante Vittorio as possible. Instead, I placed the card on my nightstand and lay down in his jacket, breathing in cedar and smoke until exhaustion finally pulled me under. I didn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Those dark eyes that had studied me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. The dangerous curve of his mouth when he'd called me Piccola. The way his touch had branded my wrist, gentle but absolute. A preview of something I didn't understand but felt in my bones. By the time dawn crept through my threadbare curtains, I'd convinced myself a dozen times not to go. Then I'd pick up his card from my nightstand, run my thumb over the raised lettering of his name, and feel my resolve crumble. The cut on my arm looked worse in daylight. Angry and deep, the edges puckered where I'd tried to butterfly it closed with medical tape. I should have gotten stitches, should have gone to urgent care, should have done a lot of things differently. I wrapped it in gauze, pulled on a long-sleeve shirt to hide the bandage, and spent the morning cleaning my apartment with manic energy, scrubbing baseboards that didn't need scrubbing, organizing a closet that barely had anything in it. Anything to avoid thinking about 9 o'clock. My phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Elena? A woman's voice, professional and smooth. This is Andrea calling from Celestia. I'm updating the schedule and wanted to confirm. You're no longer on the roster for tonight. Mr. Vittorio has requested your evening be cleared. My stomach dropped. I didn't request. It's already arranged. Your wages for the shift will be included in Friday's payment. Is there anything else I can help you with? The careful politeness couldn't mask the underlying message. This wasn't a conversation. It was a notification. No, I whispered. Thank you. She hung up without another word. I stared at my phone, anger, and something else. Something uncomfortably close to anticipation, warring in my chest. He'd actually done it. Changed my schedule with a single request. Rearranged my life like moving pieces on a chessboard. I should have been furious. Instead, I opened my closet and tried to figure out what you wore to meet a man who'd probably killed people. By 8:30, I'd changed outfits 4 times and settled on the only dress I owned that didn't look like it had been salvaged from a donation bin, a simple black sheath I'd bought for my mother's funeral 3 years ago. It was plain, modest, appropriate for nothing and everything all at once. I'd washed his jacket carefully, dried it on low heat, and now it hung on my arm like borrowed armor as I descended the stairs of my building. The evening air was cool and clear. The rain from last night evaporated into nothing but damp pavement and the lingering smell of wet concrete. The bus ride to Celestia took 40 minutes. I spent every second of it questioning my sanity. The restaurant looked different at night, lit from within like a jewel box, the kind of place I'd never have entered if I didn't work there. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed glimpses of crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, patrons who moved with the easy confidence of people who'd never checked a price tag in their lives. I bypassed the main entrance where a host in a tuxedo greeted arriving guests. Instead, I went around back to the employee entrance, the one I'd used 100 times before. My keycard still worked. The lock clicked green, and I slipped inside. The back hallway smelled like garlic and fresh bread, familiar and grounding. I could hear the kitchen in full chaos, the clatter of pans, the shouted orders in English and Spanish, the controlled frenzy of dinner service. Elena? I turned to find Carlos, one of the line cooks, staring at me with wide eyes. What are you doing here? I thought you weren't working tonight. I'm not. I held up the jacket, returning something. His gaze dropped to the expensive fabric in my hands, and his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. Concern? Fear? You should go through the front, he said quietly. If you're here for him. My throat went dry. Carlos. Be careful, Elena. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. Men like that, they don't just let people walk away. Once you're in, you're in. Before I could respond, he disappeared back into the kitchen, leaving me alone in the hallway with my racing heart and his jacket growing heavier by the second. I made my way through the familiar corridors, past the break room and the manager's office, toward the main dining room. But before I reached it, a hand caught my elbow. Marcus. The man from last night, still in his perfect suit, still radiating barely contained danger. "Miss Elena," he said, and his tone was infinitely more respectful than it had been on the street. "Mr. Vittorio is waiting for you. This way, please." He guided me past the main dining room entirely, toward the private elevator that led to the second floor, the exclusive floor, the one where I'd served exactly once and tried very hard to be invisible. The elevator was lined with mirrors and soft lighting. I watched our reflection rise, me in my funeral dress clutching his jacket, Marcus standing at perfect attention, betraying nothing. "He's been waiting all day," Marcus said suddenly, his eyes still forward. "I've worked for Mr. Vittorio for 8 years. I've never seen him wait for anyone." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The elevator doors opened directly into a private dining room that stole my breath. It was smaller than I remembered, more intimate. A single table set for 2 near floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city lights. Candles flickered in crystal holders. A bottle of wine, probably worth more than my monthly rent, breathed on the table. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, was Dante Vittorio. He wore black tonight, black slacks, black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink I couldn't quite make out from this distance. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. "Thank you, Marcus," he said without turning. "That will be all." Marcus retreated immediately, and I heard the elevator doors close behind me with soft finality. We were alone. "You came," Dante said, finally turning to face me. Those dark eyes found mine across the room, and I felt the impact like a physical blow. "I wasn't certain you would. You changed my schedule," I said, pleased when my voice came out steadier than I felt. "Didn't leave me much choice. There's always a choice, Piccola." He moved toward me with that same fluid grace, predatory and mesmerizing. "You could have stayed home, ignored me, thrown my card away. I brought your jacket back. I held it out between us like a shield, but he ignored it, his attention fixed entirely on my face. Keep it. It looks better on you anyway. I can't accept. You can. You will." He plucked the jacket from my hands and tossed it carelessly over a nearby chair, then caught my wrist, the same one he'd held last night, and pulled me gently toward the table. "Sit, have dinner with me." "Why?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" He pulled out my chair, waiting. After a moment's hesitation, I sat, and he settled across from me with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I want," he said, reaching for the wine and pouring 2 glasses with practiced elegance, "to have dinner with a beautiful woman who looked at me on a rainy street and saw a man instead of a name. I know your name now." "Yes." He slid my glass across the table. "And yet you're still here." I didn't touch the wine. "What exactly is it that you do, Mr. Vittorio?" "Dante," he corrected. "And I do many things. I own restaurants, construction companies, import-export businesses, real estate holdings throughout the city." "And the other things?" I pressed. "The things that make people afraid to say your name in cars?" Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Pleasure, maybe, that I wasn't playing dumb. "The other things are not topics for first dates. This isn't a date. No." He leaned back, studying me over the rim of his glass. "What would you call it?" "A mistake," I said honestly, and his laugh was low and genuine. Finally, some honesty. He set down his glass and leaned forward, elbows on the table, giving me his complete attention. "Ask me what you really want to know, Elena. I'll answer 3 questions truthfully tonight. Choose them carefully." My mind raced. 3 questions. What did I actually want to know? What was safe to know? How did you know where I lived? "I had you followed," he said without a hint of shame, "for 3 weeks after I saw you working here. I wanted to know who you were, if you were safe, if anyone was taking care of you." His jaw tightened slightly. The answer to that last one made me angry. A chill ran down my spine. 3 weeks. He'd been watching me for 3 weeks. That's terrifying. That's protection. He signaled to someone I hadn't noticed, a server who appeared from the shadows with plates of food that smelled incredible. Question 2? I waited until the server disappeared again, my appetite gone despite the beautiful food in front of me. What do you want from me, really? Complicated question. He cut into his steak with precise movements, but his eyes never left mine. At first, I wanted to understand why I couldn't stop thinking about you. Why a woman who served me wine for 30 seconds 3 months ago had crawled under my skin and refused to leave. He paused, chewing slowly, then continued. Now I want everything. Your time, your attention, your trust eventually. I want to know every thought in that clever head. Every fear, every secret. You don't even know me. Not yet, he agreed. But I will. Last question, Piccola. Make it count. I looked down at my wrapped forearm, hidden beneath my sleeve, and made a decision. Why do you call me that? Piccola? His expression softened into something almost tender. It means little one. And before you argue that you're not little, he held up a hand. It's not about size. It's about, he searched for words, something precious, something that needs protecting. Something mine. I'm not yours. Not yet, he said again, echoing his earlier words. Eat, Elena. The chef prepared this specifically for you. How did he know what I'd like? I told him. At my startled look, he smiled. I pay attention. You always order the chicken piccata on your breaks. You drink water, no ice. You avoid anything with mushrooms. He gestured to my plate. No mushrooms, I promise. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like being dissected, examined, catalogued, but I was hungry. I'd been too nervous to eat all day, so I picked up my fork and took a bite. It was perfect. Of course it was perfect. We ate in silence for a few minutes, and I tried to ignore how his attention never wavered, how he watched every bite I took with satisfaction, like my eating pleased him on some fundamental level. Roll up your sleeve, he said suddenly, his voice dropping into something harder. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. What? Your left sleeve. Roll it up. Why would I? Elena. My name was a warning. Roll up your sleeve. Now. With shaking hands, I set down my fork and slowly pushed up my sleeve, revealing the gauze wrapped around my forearm. His expression went absolutely still, controlled in a way that was somehow more frightening than anger. Take off the bandage. It's fine. Just a cut from work. Take it off. I unwrapped the gauze with trembling fingers, exposing the angry gash that had bled through the tape I'd used to close it. It looked infected now, red and swollen around the edges. Dante was out of his chair before I could blink, kneeling beside me, his hand catching my arm with infinite gentleness. His thumb traced the air above the wound, careful not to touch it. How? The word came out flat, deadly. How did this happen? I grabbed a broken plate during service. Yesterday. I didn't realize. You didn't realize you'd been cut deep enough to need stitches? His eyes lifted to mine, black with fury that I instinctively knew wasn't directed at me. You wrapped this in tape and went home in the rain? Worked a double shift injured? I couldn't afford urgent care, I said quietly. And it's fine. It'll heal. Marcus. His voice cracked through the room like a whip. The elevator doors opened immediately. Had Marcus been waiting there the entire time? And he appeared in the doorway. Get Dr. Russo here. Now. Tell him it's urgent. Sir, it's almost 10. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. Get him here in the next 20 minutes or I'll burn his practice to the ground. Dante hadn't looked away from my arm, his jaw set in a way that made him look capable of extreme violence. And find out who was managing the floor at Celestia last night. I want their name. Right away, sir. Marcus vanished, and I tried to pull my arm back. You don't need to. This is ridiculous. It's just a cut. Sit down. The command in his voice froze me in place. You're not leaving until you explain that bruise. My blood went cold. What bruise? His fingers, still impossibly gentle, pushed up my sleeve higher, revealing the yellow-green shadow of an old bruise on my upper arm. One I'd forgotten about, from where I'd bumped into a door frame carrying a heavy tray last week. "This one," he said softly, dangerously. "And don't lie to me, Elena. I'll know." The air between us felt charged, electric. Dante's fingers still hovered near the faded bruise, his touch feather-light, but his gaze heavy as iron. I could see the controlled fury in the set of his shoulders, the tension in his jaw, and something else. Something possessive and primal that made my breath catch. "It's from work," I said quickly. "I hit a door frame carrying a tray. It happens all the time in restaurants. It's nothing. Nothing." He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "You work yourself to exhaustion, cut yourself on broken plates, bruise yourself carrying trays that are too heavy, and it's nothing. It's my job. Not anymore." The words hung in the air between us, absolute and terrifying. I jerked my arm back, finally breaking his hold, and stood on shaking legs. You don't get to make decisions about my life." "Sit down, Piccola." He rose to his full height, and I was reminded viscerally of the difference between us, not just physically, though he towered over me, all controlled strength and coiled danger, but in every way that mattered: power, money, the casual certainty that the world would bend to his will. "No." The word came out stronger than I felt. "I came here to return your jacket and have dinner. That's all. I don't know what you think this is, but I'm not some project you can fix, or person you can control just because you decided to notice me." His expression shifted, something like admiration flickering through the anger. "There she is, the woman who told me off in the rain. I was wondering where she'd gone. I'm leaving." "You're not." He moved between me and the elevator with predatory speed. "Not until Dr. Russo looks at that arm. Not until we discuss your employment situation. And certainly not until you understand something very clearly." "Understand what?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell cedar and smoke, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "That from the moment you got in my car last night, you became my responsibility, mine to protect, mine to care for, and I take care of what's mine." "I'm not." "Yes," he interrupted, his voice dropping to something almost tender. "You are. You just don't know it yet." The elevator chimed before I could respond. An older man emerged, carrying a medical bag, his salt and pepper hair slightly mussed like he'd dressed in a hurry. He took one look at Dante's expression and moved immediately to my side. "Miss," he said gently, setting his bag on the table. "I'm Dr. Russo. May I examine your arm?" I wanted to refuse, wanted to storm out, take the stairs if I had to, get as far away from Dante Vittorio and his overwhelming intensity as possible. But the cut throbbed, angry and hot, and the doctor's kind eyes reminded me of my grandfather. "Fine," I whispered, sinking back into my chair. Dr. Russo worked efficiently, his touch professional and careful. He cleaned the wound. I hissed at the sting of antiseptic, and examined it with a small flashlight. "It's infected," he confirmed, glancing at Dante. "Not badly, but it needs proper care. Should have had stitches immediately. I can close it now with butterfly strips and surgical glue, but there'll be a scar." "Do whatever you need to do," Dante said from behind me. I felt his presence like heat, standing close enough that his hand came to rest on the back of my chair. "Possessive. Protective. And give her antibiotics, the strongest you have." "That's not necessary," I started. But Dante's hand moved to my shoulder, a gentle pressure that somehow commanded silence. "It's necessary, Dr. Russo worked quietly, closing the wound with practiced efficiency. I watched his hands instead of looking at Dante, trying to ignore how my shoulder burned where he touched me, even through fabric. "You need to keep this dry for 48 hours, Dr. Russo said, wrapping fresh gauze around my forearm. "Take the antibiotics twice a day with food. If you see any red streaks spreading from the wound, or if you develop a fever, call me immediately." He handed me a card and a bottle of pills from his bag. "My personal number, day or night." "Thank you," I managed. He packed up his supplies, accepted what looked like several $100 bills from Dante without counting them, and left as quickly as he'd arrived. The elevator doors closed, and we were alone again. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly, not looking at him. "I would have taken care of it." "When?" His hand slid from my shoulder down my arm, carefully avoiding the fresh bandage until his fingers intertwined with mine. "Between your double shifts, with the money you don't have, stop being stubborn and let someone help you for once in your life." "Why do you even care?" I turned to face him finally, exhausted and confused and overwhelmed. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life or what I need, or I know you haven't been to a doctor in 3 years because you can't afford insurance." His thumb traced circles on my palm, the gesture oddly soothing despite everything. "I know you send half your paycheck to your younger brother in college. I know you eat 1 meal a day, usually after your shift ends. I know you take the bus in the rain because your car died 6 months ago and you can't afford to fix it. I know," his voice dropped, "that you're alone in this city with no one watching out for you, and that's unacceptable." Each statement felt like a violation, intimate and terrifying. "You had no right to investigate me." "I had every right." He pulled me to my feet with gentle insistence. "The moment I saw you, exhausted and invisible while entitled people snapped their fingers for more wine, I knew. You were important. You mattered. And no one was treating you like you did. So what? You decided to swoop in and rescue me? I don't need rescuing." "No," he agreed, and that dangerous smile curved his lips. "You need someone who sees you, really sees you. Someone who'll make sure you eat, that you're safe, that you're cared for the way you deserve. I take care of myself. Barely." The word was harsh, but his touch remained gentle. "And badly. When was the last time you ate a full meal that you didn't have to cook after working 14 hours? When did you last sleep without worrying about bills? When did someone last ask if you were okay and actually wait for an honest answer?" My throat tightened. I wouldn't cry. Wouldn't give him that. "What do you want from me?" I asked again, desperate for an answer that made sense. "Really? Because this," I gestured between us, "doesn't make sense. Men like you don't notice women like me." "Men like me," he said slowly, "are very good at recognizing value when we see it. And you, Piccola, are invaluable." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, more insistently. With a frustrated sound, he released my hand and pulled it from his pocket. His expression went cold as he read the screen. Absolutely, terrifyingly cold. "When?" he said into the phone, not bothering with greetings. A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Have everyone ready." He hung up and looked at me, something like regret crossing his features. "I have to go. Business that can't wait." "Okay," I said, relief and disappointment warring in my chest. Marcus will take you home." He was already moving toward the elevator. All business now, the tender intensity from moments ago locked away behind walls of ice. "He'll wait outside your building until you're safely inside." "That's not necessary. It's not negotiable." He pressed the elevator button, then turned back to me, catching my face in his hands with surprising gentleness. His thumbs traced my cheekbones, and I watched something dark and possessive flicker in his eyes. "Tomorrow, noon. I'm sending a car to your apartment. We're going somewhere." "I work tomorrow." "Not anymore. I bought Celestia this afternoon. You're officially on paid leave until I say otherwise." My mouth fell open. You can't just..." "I can. I did." He pressed a quick, firm kiss to my forehead that sent electricity shooting through my entire body. "Wear something comfortable. And Elena?" He waited until I met his eyes. "Don't even think about not being there. I'll come get you myself, and I won't be as patient the second time." Then he was gone, the elevator doors closing on his broad back, leaving me standing alone in a private dining room with half-eaten food and a mind spinning with too many thoughts to process. Marcus appeared 30 seconds later from a different elevator, silent and efficient. "Miss Elena, if you're ready." I grabbed Dante's jacket, I wasn't leaving it here, and followed Marcus in a daze. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and the bizarre realization that I had nowhere to be. No shift, no desperate scramble to make the bus on time. Just time. I made coffee. Real coffee. Not the instant kind. And sat by my window watching the city wake up. The card on my nightstand seemed to pulse with presence, and I picked it up, running my thumb over Dante's name. He'd bought an entire restaurant, just to give me time off. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something uncomfortably warm unfurl in my chest. At 11:30, I was dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, my hair pulled back, the bandage on my arm hidden beneath long sleeves. I told myself I was only going because he'd threatened to come get me, that it was easier to comply than to fight. I told myself a lot of lies that morning. The car that pulled up at exactly noon was different from the one before, a sleek SUV with tinted windows and Marcus behind the wheel. Another man sat in the passenger seat, equally large, equally alert. "Miss Elena," Marcus said as he opened my door. "Mr. Vittorio was waiting." The drive took 40 minutes, out of the city and into rolling hills I'd never explored. We pulled up to a property that stole my breath. A sprawling estate with manicured grounds, gardens still blooming despite the autumn chill, and a house that looked more like a villa than anything that belonged in this state. Dante stood on the front steps, dressed casually in dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even darker. He looked younger like this, more approachable, though no less dangerous. "Elena?" he said, my name like a caress. He descended the steps with that fluid grace and opened my car door himself, offering his hand. "Thank you for coming." Did I have a choice? Always. But his smile said he'd known I'd come. "Walk with me?" He led me around the house to the gardens, keeping my hand tucked in his. The late morning sun felt warm on my face, and the air smelled like roses and something herbal I couldn't identify. "This is your home?" I asked. "One of them, my favorite." He guided me down a stone path between hedges shaped into elegant curves. "It's quiet here. Private. Safe. Safe from what? Everything." He stopped beside a fountain, a beautiful marble piece with water cascading from a woman's cupped hands. "I wanted you to see it. Wanted you to understand what I'm offering." My stomach clenched. "Offering?" "A life, Piccola." He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made my knees weak. "One where you don't work yourself to death for pennies. Where you're protected, cared for, given everything you need and most of what you want." "I don't understand. I want you here." He gestured to the house, the grounds, the peaceful beauty surrounding us. "With me. I want to come home and find you reading in the library. I want to watch you discover what it's like to not be exhausted. I want," he stepped closer, "to know that you're safe and happy and mine." "You're asking me to be what? Your mistress?" "No." The word was sharp, almost offended. "I'm asking you to let me take care of you. To give me the chance to prove that I can make you happy. To stop fighting so hard alone and let someone share the burden. I barely know you, then get to know me." His hands framed my face again, that gesture already becoming familiar. "Stay here today. Let me show you the house. Have lunch with me. Talk to me. Give me one day to prove this isn't insane." "It is insane," I whispered, but I didn't pull away. "Maybe." His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the touch everywhere. "But you're still here. You got in the car. You let me hold your hand. Part of you knows, Elena, knows this is right, even if it shouldn't be." A phone rang. His again. He pulled it out with clear frustration, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed. Rage. Pure, cold rage. "What?" he answered, the word ablade. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watched his expression grow progressively darker, more dangerous. "When did this happen?" A pause. "Is he still breathing?" Another pause. "Keep him that way. I'm coming." He hung up and looked at me, and I actually stepped back from what I saw in his eyes. "I have to go," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Something's happened. Something that requires my immediate attention." "Okay," I managed. Marcus will take you home. I'll call you tonight. He pressed his phone into my hand, an expensive model, probably worth more than 3 months of my old salary. My number's programmed in. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Understood? I nodded, unable to find words. He kissed my forehead again, lingering longer this time, then strode toward a garage that opened to reveal several cars. He chose a low black sports car that roared to life like something feral. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in his garden holding his phone, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Marcus drove me home in silence, but I caught him watching me in the rearview mirror more than once. His expression was carefully neutral, but I sensed something beneath it. Concern, maybe, or warning. How long have you worked for him? I asked as we merged onto the highway back toward the city. 8 years, miss. And in those 8 years, has he ever... I struggled for the right words. Has he ever done this before? Brought someone to his home like this? Marcus was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, no, miss. Never. The weight of that single word settled over me like a blanket. Never. I was the first. The only one he'd brought to his favorite place. His sanctuary. I should have felt special. Instead, I felt trapped. Back at my apartment, I stood in the center of my tiny living room, holding Dante's phone like it might explode. The screen lit up every few minutes with messages, most in Italian, some in English, all seeming urgent and vague, names I didn't recognize, times, addresses, the language of a world I didn't understand and probably shouldn't want to, but I did want to. God help me. I wanted to understand him. The phone rang at 8 that evening. His name on the screen made my heart lurch. Hello? Elena. Just my name, but I could hear exhaustion underneath it. And something else. Anger, barely leashed. Are you home? Safe? Yes. Marcus made sure I got in okay. Good. A long pause filled with background noise. Men's voices, the slam of a door. Sounds I couldn't identify. I'm sorry about today. I wanted to show you the rest of the house. The library. There's a conservatory that gets afternoon light. You would have loved it. What happened? I asked before I could stop myself. Whatever called you away, is it handled? It will be. His voice dropped into something darker. Someone made a mistake. A very costly mistake. They're learning the price of it now. I should have been horrified. Should have hung up. Blocked his number. Maybe called the police. Instead, I sank onto my threadbare couch and asked, "Are you okay?" Silence. Long enough that I thought the connection had dropped. No one's asked me that in a very long time, he said finally, and something in his voice made my chest ache. I'm fine, Piccola. Tired, frustrated, wishing I was having dinner with you instead of dealing with idiots who don't understand loyalty. Loyalty seems important to you. It's everything. The certainty in his words was absolute. In my world, your word is your life. Break it and... He trailed off. You don't want to know the rest. Maybe I do. No. Firm, final. You don't. I won't taint you with the details of my business, Elena. That's not why I want you. Then why do you want me? I curled into the corner of the couch, pulling a blanket around myself. I still don't understand. You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who belong in your world. I don't want someone from my world. He cut me off. My world is full of people who want something. Money, power, protection, connections. Everyone has an angle. Everyone's calculating the cost-benefit of every interaction. A pause. But you looked at me in the rain and told me I didn't own the street. You got in my car even though you were terrified. You came to dinner even though every instinct probably told you to run. You're brave and honest and real in a way I've never encountered. I'm not brave, I whispered. I'm scared of you. Good. His answer surprised me. You should be a little scared. I'm not a good man, Elena. I won't pretend to be. But I'll be good to you. That's a promise. Promises are easy to make. Not for me. I don't make them lightly. I heard a door close, the background noise cutting off. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more intimate. Where are you right now? What are you doing? On my couch, under a blanket, talking to you. What are you wearing? The question sent heat through me despite its innocence. The same thing I wore today, jeans and a sweater. Are you comfortable? Yes. Warm enough? Yes. Have you eaten? I hesitated. Not yet. Elena. Disappointment and frustration mixed in my name. You promised to take the antibiotics with food. That means actual meals, not crackers or, what was it last week, a granola bar for dinner. How did you know about the granola bar? I pay attention. I heard rustling like he was moving. There's a folder in my phone. Open it. What? The photo gallery. There's a folder labeled Elena. Open it. With shaking hands, I navigated to his photos and found the folder. Inside were dozens of images. Me leaving my building, waiting at the bus stop, walking into Celestia. Me through the restaurant windows, serving tables. Me in the rain the night we met. You photographed me. I breathed. Not sure if I felt violated or oddly cherished. I needed to see you when I couldn't be there, he said simply. Needed to know you were safe, that no one was bothering you. Look at the last photo. I scrolled to the end. It was from earlier today, me in his garden, standing by the fountain, sunlight catching in my hair. I looked almost pretty in that light, almost like I belonged there. That's how I want to see you every day, he said softly, happy, peaceful, not exhausted and hurt and struggling alone. I'm not alone. Aren't you? The question was gentle but cut deep. When was the last time someone knew you were sick? When did someone last check if you'd eaten? Who do you call when you're scared or tired or just need to hear a friendly voice? I couldn't answer because he was right. My brother was busy with school, hundreds of miles away. My few friends from high school had moved on, built lives I couldn't afford to be part of. I worked, came home, slept, repeated day after day after day. Let me be that person, Dante said into my silence. Let me be the one who checks on you, who makes sure you eat and sleep and smile occasionally. Let me take care of you the way you deserve. In exchange for what? Nothing. The answer was immediate. I'm not asking you to be anything you're not, Elena. I just want you safe and happy. That's enough. No one does something for nothing. I'm not no one. His voice hardened slightly. And you're not something. You're important. To me. For reasons I'm still trying to understand myself. A knock on my door made me jump. Someone's here, I said. I know. It's dinner. I'm having it delivered since you won't eat properly on your own. You sent me food? Answer the door, Piccola. Still holding his phone to my ear, I opened the door to find a young man holding several bags from an upscale Italian restaurant I'd walked past 100 times but never entered. Miss Elena? He asked. At my nod, he handed over the bags with a smile. Enjoy your meal. I brought everything inside, setting the bags on my small kitchen counter. The containers alone probably cost more than my usual groceries. Open them, Dante instructed in my ear. I did. Chicken piccata, my favorite. Fresh bread still warm, a Caesar salad, tiramisu, even a bottle of sparkling water with no ice. Exactly how I preferred it. How did you... I pay attention, he repeated. Now eat. I'll stay on the phone with you. You don't have to. I want to. Eat, Elena. Let me have this much at least. So I did. I plated the food and sat at my tiny kitchen table, and I ate while Dante Vittorio listened on the other end of the line. Sometimes he asked questions about my brother, about my childhood, about books I liked or places I'd never been but wanted to see. Sometimes he just breathed, quiet company across the distance. It was the strangest, most intimate meal I'd ever had. Better? He asked when I'd finished. Yes. Thank you. Good. Now take your medication and get some sleep. You sound exhausted. When will I see you again? The question escaped before I could stop it, and his sharp intake of breath told me he'd heard the longing I hadn't meant to reveal. Tomorrow, he said, satisfaction clear in his voice. I'm clearing my afternoon. We're having lunch together. Somewhere public, if that makes you feel safer. Okay? Okay? He echoed. Sleep well, Piccola. Dream of gardens and sunlight. What will you dream of? You, he said simply. I always dream of you now. He hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in my kitchen with his phone still pressed to my ear and my heart doing complicated things in my chest. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern that felt inevitable, like gravity. Dante took me to lunch, then dinner, then breakfast at a cafe where he watched me eat French toast with the same intensity most people reserve for art. He sent food when I was home, called every night to make sure I was safe. Appeared at random times with gifts I tried to refuse. A new coat when mine tore, books I'd mentioned wanting to read, a ridiculously expensive heating pad when I mentioned my shoulder hurt. "I don't need all this," I protested one evening as he handed me a box containing boots that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "But you want them," he countered. And he was right. I'd stopped in front of a shop window days ago, admiring the leather boots displayed there, not realizing he'd been watching. He never pushed for more, never tried to kiss me beyond chaste touches to my forehead or cheeks, never demanded anything physical, but the possession in his eyes grew stronger daily, and I felt myself falling into the gravity of his attention, like a moon caught in orbit. I should have been stronger, should have maintained distance, but he made it so easy to lean into his care, to let him shoulder burdens I'd carried alone for so long. My brother called one evening, excited and confused. "Ellie, something weird happened. I got an email saying my tuition for next semester is paid, and my housing. Someone set up a scholarship in Nona's name. Do you know anything about this?" I'd looked across the restaurant table at Dante, who'd been watching me with that careful attention. He'd known I was talking to my brother, known exactly what the call was about. "Just accept it," I'd said to my brother. "You deserve it." After I hung up, I'd stared at Dante for a long moment. "My brother's scholarship. That was you." "Yes." "Why?" "Because it made you happy." He'd reached across the table, threading his fingers through mine. "Because you sent him half your money every month, and I'd rather see you comfortable. Because I can, and I wanted to." "I can't accept. You already have. It's done." His thumb traced patterns on my palm. "Let me do this, Elena. Let me take care of the people you love." That was the moment I realized I was in trouble. Real, serious trouble, because the look in his eyes wasn't just possession or attraction, it was devotion, pure and absolute, and I was starting to crave it like oxygen. The call came on a Wednesday evening. I was at his estate. I'd been spending more time there, drawn by the peace and the library he'd promised. He'd been teaching me about wine, laughing when I admitted I couldn't tell the difference between expensive and cheap. His phone rang, and I watched his expression shudder into something cold and deadly. "Handle it," he said into the phone. "No. Bring him here. I want to look him in the eyes when he explains himself." He hung up and looked at me, regret clear on his face. "I need to take care of something. It won't take long." "Should I leave?" "No." The word was sharp, almost panicked. "Stay. Please. I'll have Marcus take you to the library. Just stay." I nodded, and he kissed my forehead, lingering, desperate, before disappearing into a wing of the house I'd never entered. Marcus appeared and guided me to the library, but I couldn't focus on books. I heard raised voices, a scream, quickly cut off, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, then silence. Dante returned an hour later, his knuckles bruised and a small cut above his eyebrow. He found me curled in a leather chair, trying to pretend I hadn't heard anything. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, kneeling beside my chair. "You shouldn't have heard that. What happened?" "Someone betrayed me, stole from me." His jaw tightened. "It's handled. The screaming is nothing you need to worry about." He took my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. "I would never hurt you, Elena. Never. What I do to people who betray me, who steal from me, who threaten what's mine, that's business. That's a different world. But you? You're sacred. Untouchable." "I'm scared," I whispered. "Of me? Of how much I want to stay. How much I'm starting to need this, need you." His expression softened into something almost vulnerable. "Then stay. Stop fighting it and just stay." He pulled me into his arms, and I went willingly, pressing my face against his chest and breathing in cedar and smoke. His heart thundered beneath my ear, and his arms wrapped around me like walls that nothing could breach. "I'm falling in love with you," he murmured into my hair. "Have been since the moment you looked at me in the rain like I was just a man. And I know it's too fast and probably insane, but I don't care. You're mine, Elena. You've been mine since that first night. I'm just waiting for you to accept it. I should have run, should have fought, should have protected myself from the dangerous man holding me like I was something precious and fragile. Instead, I tilted my face up and kissed him. The kiss shattered something between us. Some final wall I'd been maintaining. Some last defense against the inevitable. Dante made a sound low in his throat, almost pained, and his hands moved to cradle my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I'd heard screaming in his house an hour ago. He kissed me like I was air, and he'd been drowning, like I was something holy he had no right to touch, but couldn't stop himself from reaching for. His lips were soft, searching, and when I opened for him, the careful control he always maintained cracked just slightly. Elena, he breathed against my mouth, and my name sounded like a prayer. Tell me to stop. Tell me you don't want this and I'll walk away. I'll make sure you're taken care of from a distance. I'll never touch you again. Just tell me now, before I can't let you go. Don't stop, I whispered, and sealed both our fates. He lifted me from the chair, as if I weighed nothing, carrying me through corridors I'd never seen to a bedroom that was clearly his, masculine and elegant, smelling like him. The bed enormous and covered in dark sheets that probably cost more than my entire apartment. But he didn't take me to the bed. Instead, he set me carefully on a chaise by the window and knelt before me, his hands framing my face again in that gesture that had become his signature. I need you to understand something, he said, his voice rough. Once we cross this line, you're mine. Completely. I don't share, Elena. I don't do casual. If you give yourself to me, I'm keeping you. Forever. No matter what. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. I've hurt people, killed people, built an empire on fear and blood and calculated violence. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to mine. But with you, I want to be different. Want to be the man who makes you smile, who keeps you safe, who gives you everything you've ever been denied. Let me be that man. What if I can't handle your world? Then I'll build you a new one. Simple. Absolute. Whatever you need, Piccola, whatever makes you happy. Just don't leave me. The vulnerability in his voice undid me completely. This powerful, dangerous man was kneeling at my feet, offering me everything, asking for nothing but my presence. I'm not going anywhere, I said, and kissed him again. This time, when he laid me on his bed, there was no hesitation, no more walls, just skin and breath and whispered promises in Italian that I didn't understand but felt in my bones. He touched me like I was something rare, something precious, mapping every inch of me with hands that could kill, but chose only to worship. And when we finally came together, when he pushed inside me with agonizing slowness, and I felt truly claimed for the first time in my life, he buried his face in my neck and said 3 words that changed everything. Mine. Finally mine. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and Dante's arm heavy across my waist, his body curved protectively around mine. For a moment, I just breathed, processing what had happened, what I'd done, what I'd become, his. The word should have felt like chains. Instead, it felt like safety. You're thinking too loud, he murmured against my shoulder, his lips brushing my skin. I can practically hear your brain spinning. I'm trying to figure out what happens now. Now? He rolled me to face him, and I was struck again by how beautiful he was in the morning light. Younger, more open, the dangerous edges softened by sleep. Now you move in, officially. We'll have Marcus collect your things today. That's very presumptuous. That's realistic. His hand traced down my spine, leaving heat in its wake. You're not going back to that apartment, Elena. You're not working yourself to death for strangers. You're staying here, with me, where you belong. I need something to do. I can't just exist. Then don't. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with serious eyes. What do you want to do? Really. If money wasn't an issue, if you could do anything, what would make you happy? I thought about it. Really thought about it for the first time in years. I wanted to be a teacher once, before my parents died, and I had to drop out to support my brother. I loved working with kids, then go back to school. He said it like it was simple, like it was already decided. Finish your degree. I'll handle everything else. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He kissed my forehead. I meant what I said last night, Elena. Whatever you need. Whatever makes you happy. It's yours. A phone rang. His, on the nightstand. He grabbed it with clear irritation, glanced at the screen, and his expression went cold. What is it? He answered, sitting up. I couldn't hear the other side, but I watched tension coil through his shoulders, saw his jaw clench with suppressed fury. When? A pause. How did they get that close? Another pause. Double the security. No one gets within a mile of the property without clearance, and find out who leaked the location. I want them in front of me by tonight. He hung up and looked at me, and I saw fear beneath the anger. Real, genuine fear. What's wrong? Nothing you need to worry about, but he was already moving, pulling on clothes with efficient speed. Stay in the house today. Marcus will be outside your door. Don't go anywhere without him. Dante, you're scaring me. He came back to the bed, caught my face in his hands. Someone found out about you, about us. They're trying to use you to get to me. Ice flooded my veins. Who? Rivals. Idiots who think they can hurt me by threatening what's mine. His eyes burned with barely controlled violence. They're wrong. I'll end every single one of them before they get within 100 feet of you. Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else until... No. The word was absolute. You're safest here, with me. This property is a fortress. I have men stationed at every entrance, cameras covering every inch of the grounds. No one gets in unless I allow it. He pressed a hard kiss to my lips. Trust me, Piccola. I'll keep you safe. I promise. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. He stood, checking a gun I hadn't noticed him pull from a drawer. The casual way he handled it, checked the magazine, tucked it into a holster at his back. It drove home exactly who and what he was. A killer. A criminal. A man who solved problems with violence. And I'd given myself to him completely. I love you, I said suddenly, the words escaping before I could question them. I know it's fast and probably stupid, but I do. I love you. He froze, something vulnerable and almost shocked crossing his face. Then he was back at the bed, kissing me with desperate intensity. Say it again, he demanded against my lips. I love you. Again. I love you, Dante. He made a sound almost like pain, and held me so tightly I could barely breathe. I'll burn the world down before I let anyone take you from me, he whispered. Every single person who threatens you will die screaming. That's what you mean to me. That's how much I love you. Then he was gone, and I was left alone in his bedroom, processing the fact that I'd just confessed love to a man who promised murder as easily as other men promised flowers. The day stretched endlessly. Marcus stood outside my door, silent and watchful. I tried to read, to eat the breakfast that appeared on a tray, to do anything but imagine what Dante was doing and to whom. My phone rang at 2 p.m. My phone, the one Dante had given me, that only he had the number to. Hello? Elena. A voice I didn't recognize, smooth and cold. You don't know me, but I know you. I know you're very important to Dante Vittorio. Important enough that he might listen to reason for once. My blood turned to ice. Who is this? Someone who has something he wants. Someone who'd like to make a trade. A pause. You. For the territory he took from me last month. Simple exchange. No one has to get hurt. I'm not. He won't. Oh, he will. The voice was certain. He'll give me everything I ask for and more. Because you're his weakness, Elena. And in our world, weaknesses get exploited. The line went dead. I dropped the phone like it burned, my hands shaking violently. They knew my number. Knew my name. Knew exactly how to hurt Dante. Marcus burst through the door before I could move. Miss Elena, we need to move you. Now. Someone called. They threatened. I know. The line was monitored. He was already guiding me out of the room, down corridors I'd never been through. Mr. Vittorio is on his way back. We're taking you to the safe room until he arrives. The safe room turned out to be exactly what it sounded like. A windowless space deep in the house with reinforced walls and multiple locks. Marcus sealed me inside with a promise that Dante was minutes away. I sat in the silence, hugging my knees, and tried not to think about what kind of life I'd chosen, what kind of danger I'd walked into with open eyes. The locks disengaged 15 minutes later. Dante stood in the doorway, and I'd never seen him look like this. Disheveled, blood on his shirt. Not his, I hoped. Eyes wild with something between rage and terror. "Elena," he breathed, and I launched myself at him. He caught me, held me so tightly my ribs ached, his face buried in my hair. "You're okay. Thank God you're okay. They called me, threatened to trade." "I know," I heard. He pulled back just enough to examine me, hands running over my arms, my face, checking for injuries that weren't there. "They're dead. All of them. I made sure they understood the price of threatening what's mine before I ended them." I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual way he discussed murder. Instead, I felt only relief that the threat was gone. "Is it over?" "For now." He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "But there will always be threats, Elena. Always someone trying to find a weakness to exploit. That's the reality of my life, of our life, if you choose to stay. If I won't trap you." His voice was raw, honest. "If this is too much, if you want out, I'll set you up somewhere safe. Somewhere no one will ever find you. I'll make sure you're protected and provided for. But I'll let you go, because I love you too much to watch you break trying to survive my world." I looked at him, this dangerous, violent man, who'd shown me more care and devotion in 3 weeks than anyone had in years, who'd taken on my burdens without asking, who'd looked at me like I hung the moon, who'd killed for me without hesitation. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "I'm scared, yes, but I'm not leaving. You're mine too, Dante, and I don't let go of what's mine either." The smile that broke across his face was brilliant, transforming him into someone younger and lighter. "Marry me." "What?" "Marry me." He said it again, certainty replacing the vulnerability. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Make it official. Let me put my ring on your finger so everyone knows exactly who you belong to, who belongs to you." "That's insane." "Probably." He kissed me softly. "But everything about us has been insane from the start. Why stop now?" "Yes," I heard myself say, and watched joy flood his features. "Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed me then like a man who'd been granted reprieve from execution, and I kissed him back, like a woman who'd finally found home in the most unexpected place. 6 months later, I stood in a garden full of white roses, the same garden where he'd first brought me, first asked me to trust him. My dress was simple but elegant. My brother walked me down the makeshift aisle with tears in his eyes, and Dante waited at the end wearing a suit that made him look like sin itself. We spoke vows in front of a handful of people. His most trusted men, my brother, a priest who'd probably been paid handsomely to overlook exactly who he was marrying. When Dante slipped the ring on my finger, a band of platinum with a diamond that caught the sunlight like captured fire, he said words meant only for me. "My Elena, my love, my life, my Dante," I whispered back. "My protector, my home." We kissed as husband and wife, and I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones like truth. The life I'd chosen wasn't safe, wasn't conventional, wasn't anything I could have predicted that rainy night when I'd told off a stranger on the street, but it was mine. He was mine, and I was his, completely and irrevocably. That evening, as we danced under string lights in the garden, Dante pulled me close and murmured in my ear, "No regrets." I looked up at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd seen me when I was invisible, who'd cared for me when I was alone, who'd chosen me above everything else in his violent world. "Not a single one," I said honestly, and I meant it. I'd started as a tired waitress barely surviving, invisible to everyone around me. I'd been terrified of the powerful man who'd noticed me in the rain. But he'd shown me that sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones worth fighting for. That love doesn't always look like safety. Sometimes it looks like cedar and smoke, leather and violence, a man who'd burn the world down to keep you warm. I went back to school the following fall, studying to be the teacher I'd always wanted to be. Dante attended my graduation 2 years later, pride blazing in his dark eyes. We adopted a dog, a massive beast of a German shepherd that Dante named Dante Jr. despite my protests. We fought sometimes, about my safety or his work or the lingering fear that never quite disappeared. But every night, he came home to me. Every morning, I woke in his arms. And every day, I chose him again, the way he'd chosen me that rainy night, when I was invisible to everyone else. The bruise had healed long ago. The cut had scarred, a thin white line on my forearm that Dante kissed sometimes, a reminder of the night everything changed. I'd walked into danger with open eyes and found love in the darkness, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.